two of the major goals for teaching the Common Core are helping students build knowledge through content and also helping them always use evidence from text. And those are things that you just said you're really focusing a lot on. However, to do that, in first grade, students need foundational skills. They need to know vocabulary, they need to know phonemic awareness, fluency, comprehension. So in that block of time, what are the keys, in your opinion, of making that work, teaching that foundational reading?
I was actually really relieved that this was a part of my day I didn't have to change with the Common Core. Small groups in my guided reading time is a huge part of my day. And so I pull students in small groups. I form those small groups by doing running records to figure out what their instructional level text is. And every day I do 4 different rotations where I pull small groups with me, and we use a book that I select for them that I know is their instructional level. And we figure out how to decode those new words. We look at new vocabulary. We work on fluency.
That's the kids working with you?
Yes, this is a small group working with me based on their individual needs.
How long?
For 20 minutes a day, and so each group is different. The level of the books that we're using are different depending on the group, and the skills we focus on are different.
How do you determine who goes into which groups?
The running records that I do at the beginning of the year, and so I start them out based on their instructional level of text, and that's how I divide them up. While I'm meeting with the students, I take notes on my clipboard on what they're doing really well, if they're using certain strategies to decode words, their fluency, and then also how they're responding to comprehension questions, where they are with understanding the book. And I may shift the groups and move students to other groups based on those notes throughout the year.
Okay, so that they're fluid sometimes.
Yes.
Kids can move back and forth. So now you have this small group, but you have a lot of other students.
Right.
How do you ensure that they're engaged in work?
I use the Daily 5 model in my classroom, and so between each section, students check in with me, and they actually get to choose, which is a big part of their engagement. They're choosing where they go when. And it's read to self, where they're reading books of their own choice, read to someone where they get to practice their skills with a partner, word work, work on writing, and listen to reading.
And they can choose any group they want, any activity they want, or
yes.
any center.
Yes. Sometimes we close a center just based on the availability of materials, but they get to choose where they go when. And at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of practice on my end, expectation setting on my end. And they know that they may only choose that one choice. They can't choose it again later in the day. They have to save it for tomorrow. That way they're getting a variety of activities during our reading block.
How do you ensure that they're picking the right books for themselves?
That's another lesson that we have at the beginning of the year. We call it Good Fit Books, and we use the I-Pick method, where we talk about choosing books that you're interested in and what's your purpose for reading. Or are you choosing this book because you want to learn something new, or are you just reading it for enjoyment? Is it a funny book? But I also have them open up to a part of the book and do kind of a sample reading to make sure that they know most of the words on the page and that they also understand what's happening. And we talk about, that's the whole point of reading, is to understand. If you're not comprehending, what's the point?
Exactly. So you're teaching them to have a purpose for reading.
Yes.
And there's a variety of purposes, and that purpose drives what you read and how you read it. So let's look at one of those centers. Just sort of, we're not going to look at each one of them. But let's look at one of them. Let's say writing. What does that look like? What might the students be doing as they're working through their writing group? Not group, but activity. Their
activity. It's all about choice. This is where the students work in their journals, and they're actually getting to write about anything that they're interested in. And at the beginning of the year, we brainstorm a big list that we put on the board of, ideas if they're stuck, things they can write about. And would you like me to do a sample? One of my friends wrote about his new eraser. He was really excited about his new eraser, and so it was all about my new red eraser. I like my eraser because it is one of my favorite colors. Bright red rocks. I hope I have this eraser for my whole first grade season.
Excellent.
And then
he loves that eraser.
He loves that eraser. But then what I do to hold him accountable and check in, we also have writing conferences at the end of the week where we set specific goals for each student. And so I noticed that he did a really good job setting it up. He had his topic at the beginning. He had a middle where he gave me a little bit more detail, and then he had an end.
Right.
But there weren't a whole lot of details in the middle. You know,
Right.
It wasn't real meaty.
I don't really know enough about the red eraser.
Exactly.
Why it's so good. I need more specifics.
Right. So I have little goal cards, and his goal card was to write several sentences about the same topic, but then I added my own expectation of more details and ideas in the middle. So he knew very specifically what to do.
And I'll just tell our audience, we'll post the materials on the Prezi so everyone can see what we're looking at. So you gave him a goal card that it has a goal on it, and the goal says that they'll write several sentences about the topic, but you wrote I also want more details.
More details in the middle. I put the date on it so he knows when he starts it, and I tape it in the front of his journal.
Okay.
That way, every time he chooses work on writing, he is supposed to check in on his goal card before he starts writing.
Okay.
So he has his focus. He knows what to do to improve, to become an even better writer. And so here's an example of when we met again. On Thursday, me, Luke, Gabriel, and Michael played in a leaf pile in my backyard. The leaf pile was mostly made of brown leaves. The next day, me, Luke, and Gabriel jumped into the leaf pile from the edge of the trampoline. Then the next day, Luke and me jumped into the leaf pile from a wall that wasn't taller than us. It's Monday, and I still have the leaf pile. I have a Jeep that I like to drive. My favorite thing to do with the Jeep is to drive it in the leaf pile. Leaves are so fun to play with.
My goodness.
Whoa.
Loves leaves.
A lot of detail about those leaves.
Absolutely. So you gave him a goal. Was there any instruction on adding detail in between the first paragraph and the second paragraph?
Yes. Whenever I have a writing conference with the students, we actually practice their goal right then together.
Okay. So you did a mini lesson with him. And then you have lots of writing goals that, do they get, this is a sheet that has lots of goals on them. Is this for you?
That is for me. So I have a quick reference because all of my goals are cut up in this little basket.
I see.
And that just made it easier for me to find.
So when you think of a goal, you can pull it out, put it in there, stick it in there, and say, this is your goal.
Yep.
Let's work on it. Excellent. So, and goal setting is the research on education says that if you do nothing else, if a student has a clear, specific goal, the likelihood that they're going to learn the material is dramatically increased. So you're using one of the most effective and evidence-based research strategies out there. So good job.
Well, thanks.
In our next section, we're going to look at how you use a shared reading model to teach students some important comprehension and critical thinking skills.